Hello, happy Tuesday. Welcome back to another episode of The Practice. This show is an unrehearsed look into my creative process. I'm Stuart. I'm a 3D artist, illustrator, designer, and your pal, and I'm excited to have you back for another episode. Episode 193. Got a fun little cactus anthropomorphized episode in store for today, and I'm going to be experimenting with a slightly different lighting setup. But before we get into the project itself, I wanted to share something that I've been releasing on social in collaboration with a buddy of mine over the last several days, and we'll continue on for another week or two. So these are some images. These are crops of an overall much larger, let's call it game map that I created. I did this in collaboration with a buddy of mine named Jared Farney, who I've linked to his social accounts. I've linked to in my Instagram posts. And these are all little steps along sort of the journey of a character that we follow. I'm showing now some of the images that have already been released. I'll give you a little preview into the image that'll get released a little later today. You see, these are all stops along the journey, and each of these images have like a track, like a musical track that my friend Jared made that go along with them. And we sort of riffed back and forth and inspired one another. I think some of the little settings that I created inspired the music that he made, and the music that he was working on obviously inspired the overall theme of the map. So this is the image that'll get released a little later today, rather. And this is a little fishing village right next to this big old lake. And so lots more of that to come over the next couple weeks. If you want to hear the sweet tracks, you can find little snippets of that and links to the full tracks over on my Instagram page at DLGNCE. And so thanks for checking that out. Much more to come. Excited for that to all come out. And then actually when the oops, that's too much of a preview. When we're finished releasing all of the snippets of tracks and images, then the albums are going to come out in early June, and we're going to release the full-on game map, which is going to look really, really sweet. So excited for that. All right, today I do have a little sketch. I'll show it to you. It's really not much to look at. We're going to be doing this kind of cactus-looking fella, and we're going to have little tiny character faces on different sort of paddles of the cactus. And as I mentioned in the intro, I've got some new ideas and sort of some, I guess not ideas, but something I want to experiment with. Basically, the physical lighting and physical-based materials, the PSR lighting, they call it. So we'll get into that later. But first, let's just start blocking out the model. So these cacti have a very cool kind of paddle shape, right? A little wider on one end than the other, kind of circular. Start blocking that out. I'm just gonna span that, shrink it along one of these axes. Then I want to use some of the sculpting tools to modify this gently. Smooth it out a little bit here. Also want to rotate this bad boy, get it in position. I'll actually bring the axis of this object down. That'll make it a little easier. Let's keep going with these sculpt tools. I'm gonna bring that up. I think it's gonna be okay to not have perfect symmetry here. In fact, that's kind of what I'm going for. That's what's great about these sculpt tools. It's a really easy, sort of hands-on way to get some, I don't know if it's realistic is the word, but get some variation in the shape of things. And like things like plants, most organic objects don't have, strict symmetry. Even people, like, I'm a bilaterally symmetrical creature, but not exactly, Everyone's lips or nostrils or eyes are slightly different, and that's the case for most living things. It's even larger. Let's get this Might be too big. Let's see. Nice and gentle. A little bit of a curve here. I can use the open and close brackets to make the brush larger and smaller. And if you hold shift, it'll do it in an increment of 10. If you see this tool getting larger and smaller, it's because I'm using the bracket keys, which is actually the same command in Photoshop. Although in Photoshop, you can't use the shift keys to do it in increments of 10, which is a little annoying. All right, so that's a good start. I'm gonna actually move this axis again. Zero this dude out. And let's get a simple little floor plane in there. Use a disk for now. Might update this later, but it's a start. Cool. All right. And so we'll rotate this guy a little bit. And then the cool thing about cacti is we have repeating forms, right? So once we've got this dude set up, we can copy. And I might, it'll be nice to add some variation to these. Like we don't want them all to be exact clones of one another. And maybe rotate them just a little bit. Some nice variation in there. But they're awfully similar in shape and size. Just kind of copy and rotate. Actually, for this guy, I'm not even going to quantize it. I'm just gonna do it by eye. Get that dude. Right, so that's starting to look like a cactus already. I haven't decided. I might use the hair object to add some spines to the cactus. Some of those nasty needles cacti are so well known for. We'll see how that goes. Also have some reference pulled up here, actually, that I'll be referring back to. Not all of these cacti have exactly the same sort of spine. Some are kind of fuzzier. Some are pretty uniform. Some are heart-shaped. It's kind of neat. But we'll see. I'm going to play it by ear a little bit. And as always, let me know if you've got any questions. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Always love to hear from the chat on these shows. I think the shows are always more entertaining, more informative. Folks, say what's up. So let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know what you're working on. Let me know if you have any questions about what we're working on. I'll try my best to answer them. Might even add a little flower to the tops of some of these little nodes. Flowering cacti. Kind of neat. I see those around. I have to say this piece was inspired by actually my own cacti. I have a little rock garden in the back. Now that I live in Texas, gardening with cacti is certainly an option. And I put this one particular type of cactus in around January of this year. We had a really wet season followed by, it's getting really hot and sunny already. I think actually in the Austin area, it's supposed to get to 98 degrees today already in May. So this cacti is getting plenty of sun. It's doing really well. It's shot off all this new growth. It's kind of neat. It's a simple thing, but it's actually quite rewarding to put some plants in the ground, water them, take a little bit of care of them, and then watch them grow and expand. It's kind of neat. That's, not a bad start. It's kind of where I want to be, to be honest. Together fairly quickly. Might actually scale these this way just to make them a little thicker. And actually that's going to give us some variation because these are on slightly different axes, so they're going to get scaled slightly differently. See how helpful it is to have moved that axis before I went and made all of these copies. Moving that axis to the bottom point where I want to manipulate it from just makes it so much easier down the line. You can imagine if the axis was in the middle. Let me show you. If I move this axis up here, right, and I'm trying to like manipulate the position of it, I'd have to change it and then move it and all that stuff. So that would be a pain. Let's say for anyone modeling out there, this is something I wish I had learned a lot earlier in my Cinema 4D career, let's call it, is moving the axis, especially for like characters. Like if you want to reposition an arm, having the axis in the shoulder is going to make it so much easier than like having it in the middle of the object. So think about ultimately where you want to put something and how it wants to rotate and interact, and you can use the axis sort of thoughtfully. All right, there we go, got that going. I'm gonna add camera. Got that dude going. Let's add some ambient occlusion. Do a quick little test render, see what we got. Well, it's not lit yet, so it doesn't look like much, but we'll get there. Another thing I want to do, let's try this. Let's take a sphere, make it a hemisphere. I'm just going to add some sort of ground details. I pressed C to make that editable. You can also use this button up here. I'm going to press UL for loop selection. Select this loop, kind of scale it in a bit. I'm gonna make a gang of copies of these just to sort of fill out this floor space. And I'm holding control as I move these around. Let's move it in the back. UTIF, what's up? I'm doing great, how are you? Thanks for tuning in. I can see already that get sort of a hard interpolation there. I'm going to turn the Opengl angle up on these. Yeah, so it's nice and smooth. Nice and smooth is what I want. Just going to add a few of these just to get the vibe going. Again, inspired by that little rock garden that I made. All friend. Yep, sure. We're pals. I'm friends with everybody. That's not necessarily true, but. Good to hear. Glad you're doing fine. Are you quarantined? You sick of being indoors? How's this COVID stuff looking near you? Oh no, and what I've done is I added the camera, was inside of it, and did all these moves around. So that's ridiculous, not good. So I'm going to delete that camera, and actually, the view before I got into the camera is actually where I want to be. So I'm just going to delete that camera and add a new one. I do that sometimes, it's annoying. All right, so now, working on our Cactus pal. Zoom out a little bit. I think I'm going to go square format on this. So I like to just start at 960, lock that ratio in. What's up, Techno? Some names I don't recognize, some new folks in the chat, that's cool. So I'll say, guys, if you can, if you'd like to, if this video is relevant for you, please subscribe. It turns out that like more than half of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed, which is too bad. And it will really help me out in terms of YouTube's placement of the videos and their, you know, the way their algorithm perceives the relevance of my content if you subscribe. So if you'd like to, if you like these videos, that would be awesome. I really appreciate it. New ones every Tuesday. Put a lot of effort into them. So check them out. What's up, Kostya? Thanks for tuning back in again. That's a name I do recognize, so appreciate it. All right, so now, I'm gonna do, well, I'm not gonna get into materials yet. I wanna show you guys some new thoughts on materials. For now, I'm gonna add some little faces. Let's see. All right, what I'm gonna do, get out of my camera. I'm just gonna isolate this face. I'm gonna have a couple faces along this whole cactus. So let's just make one. We'll copy them around and then we'll modify them each. So I'm gonna go put that in a group, holding Option G, and then I'm holding down Option again. I'm gonna throw that inside of a symmetry object. Move that to the left. So there's two eyes. And then make a little mouth very quickly. Just gonna copy that circle. I'm gonna hold Alt while that's Option on a Mac. And then I will add, a sweep. Put both those circles inside there. And there is a rather simple mouth. That's a face. Oh, cool. Thanks for tuning in live, Techno. Glad to have you. And thanks for watching the other videos. All right, so I really don't want all the faces to look like this. Let's try this. Plan here is to put little faces. I'll show you guys the sketch. I'm sure a lot of you didn't see it, just tuning in now. You'll be able to see that sketch. It's kind of a lousy sketch. I didn't even bother taking a photo of it and sharing it on the stream today. But it was enough to just sort of get my ideas out. So what I want to do is have a bunch of little faces, kind of at a small scale, on different pieces of the cactus, different paddles, let's call them. I think what I'll do at first, just kind of set a simple one up and then use instances to copy them around and then expand the instances and make each of these faces a little bit different. What I'm gonna do is, I don't know if I'm gonna keep this, but sometimes it's nice to have these kind of chubby cheeks. Chubby cheeks. Well, turn up the quality. View lit. So this is my third live stream on the new computer. I have to say that I'm finally starting to get used to working on a PC. I was hitting that Windows key a whole lot the first couple weeks I had it. Getting a little better with that. Still not perfect for sure, but it's a process. So I think the other thing I'll do, I'll make a copy of this dude. Whoops. A little smaller. Make a pupil. Now, a lot of times what I do is make this object editable and then physically scale down the proportions. But since I only want to change the scale along one axis and I don't want to do much other modifications, so I'll just go into this coordinates tab underneath the object and just scale it down that way, which is fine because then I can come in later and adjust some of the other parameters. So it's still, what do you call this? Like a parametric object, or a, what do they call it? I don't think parametric is the word for it. It's called a live object. Cool. So we'll take this face, and first thing I'm going to it's a little bit too dense of a mesh for what I need, so I'm gonna take this, grab this circle, and just turn the angle up to say like 10. Oops. All right. That's a little better. Still kind of dense, but that's fine for now. So now I'm gonna, with this face selected, I'm gonna add an instance. Oop. Now I've got a copy. Put it over here. I'm gonna edit these guys later. I don't want them all to have the same exact face. Excuse me. This allows me to, you know, texture and make some revisions and do some things consistently. So every change that I make to this guy, as I'm sure you know, will modify the other instances. So that can make it a little bit easier when you're trying to do a bunch of similar things. You can just start with instances, and then when you want to really customize them later, you can come back and do just that. I'm gonna, you know, change their facial expressions and move their mouth around and stuff like that. So these are sort of placeholders for now. It's three little characters. Wondering if I should add a few more. That looks like they're waving, huh? Should add one over there. Oops. I think that's nice. I think that's kind of nice. If I make this guy a little bigger, it'll warrant a little face. The other nice thing about instances is that they tend to render a little bit quicker. So if you use instances instead of just actual copies of the object, they should render a bit quicker. All right, let's see what we got. Fairly simple at the moment. Now let's add just a little bit of lighting. We're going to tweak and fine tune the lighting over the course of the episode, but I want to get a little bit in place to start. And this is going to be something sort of new. I wouldn't have done this on my old computer because it's a little bit more a little bit more processor intensive. But we're going to play with some of the physical based lighting. Whoops, I accidentally do that. I'm going to lock my camera. Tag, move 4D, action. I don't accidentally move that camera. So I'm going to play with the physically based render. So I'm going to make some PSR lights and some physical materials, physically based rendering, I think is what PBR stands for. You add one of these and you see that the channels inside this material are a little bit different than your typical Cinema 4D channels. You'll see that by default, it comes with reflectance turned on, and this is sort of your main color channel. You got your default reflectance and your default diffuse. And this default diffuse is really sort of where our color originates from. There is a color channel, but it acts slightly differently than your typical Cinema 4D materials. So I'm going to take these instances in this face and put it all inside this null. Rename that. Cool. There we go on that. I'll make another one and make that kind of a brownish color. Ground. And you know what, I'll go ahead and just add this disk to the ground. We'll render. See what we have. Now, the other component is these physically based rendered lighting. So add one of those in. You can see by default, it's like an area light, and it also has this illuminated face. So it looks a little bit different in inside the viewport here. And you can see the way it lights in the viewport is a little bit different as well. So this can give us a little bit more realistic results, especially when we start playing with subsurface scattering and some of those other things. So I'm gonna bring this up, just use a nice, kind of nice big area light, get some overall lighting on the model. And the lighting, the PBR light, is this a PBR light? Yeah, it must be. It has the same icon as a normal area light. But you see it has a few different options. This is more similar to a normal light, at least in its options, but it'll behave a little bit differently than a normal light. And I'm not an expert on these by any means. You can see we've got already, and now what we want to do is actually turn our renderer over to physical. And this whole system is gonna, they're gonna play well together now that we've got these physically based materials, physically based lighting, and the physical renderer turned on. It's a little bit grainy at the moment, but we're gonna, you know, some of the settings are pretty low, so we're gonna go through and update some of that. I'm gonna go ahead, let's see. Reflection on the, I'm gonna leave a little bit of reflection on the cactus itself. Cacti are not particularly reflective, although they do have sort of a waxy surface. What's up, Albacore 3D? Thanks for tuning in. The ground, I don't want really reflective at all, so I'm gonna turn that way down. And I think I am gonna add the color channel to both of these. Uh-oh. And we just had a crash. That is bad. Well, when did I last save? How much did we lose? I don't think I saved that recently. Shoot. It should, they say it saves a recovery file. I'm not sure if it actually does. We lost a lot of that. Guys, that's really frustrating. Let's see. Bummer. You know, usually fairly stable program. That's super frustrating. All right, well, I'm gonna bust through that a little bit quicker, less less description. So we can go ahead and do this. All right, so reflectance, turn it down, color. I had a nice green color there. That's kind of disappointing. Okay. All right, not the end of the world. And that so rarely happens. Well, you're seeing really how the sausage gets made. And I notice all the viewers dropping off as we get a crash. Don't blame me. All right, so gotta save more frequently too. Here's our light. Add protection tag. We only really lost a couple minutes worth of work. All right. Yeah, just a little bit of yellow in here. Kind of a warm light. So it'll look kind of sunny. Then we want turn on physical renderer. All right. So to start, I'm going to make the cactus material a little bit more reflective than the ground material. This ground material wants to be a little bit darker. This got to be maybe a little bit more saturated, a little lighter. All right, now I'm going to try, save, and then I'm going to add a color. Okay, here we go. See how that alters the look of the object when we add a color. Comparison. All right. So I made a copy of that main cactus material. I'm going to modify the color a little bit here. Oh, it's actually a little too saturated. Pull that down a little bit. I'm just going to copy, go to color, hit paste. It's a fun little trick if you don't know it. I'm going to add that there. Lips just to give us a little bit more contrast in these facial features. Make a mostly white, add a little bit of warmth to it. On the eyes. And make a nice pupil color too. I usually like to do with pupils is make sort of a real dark blue color. Copy. Paste. Actually, on these eye materials, gosh, I'm really hesitant to select two at once. If I can modify them at the same time, I can. Okay, I'm turn the reflection up on those guys because eyes are typically reflective. Not what I wanted. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so kind of fun. Now we're going to improve the lighting a lot here. I'll probably add a second light, at least one more light to the scene. I think I want to add one more face, and then what I'm going to do is start modifying these faces so they're not all exactly the same. That's a little bit boring. All right. So let's start modifying these dudes. I'm just going to hit C. You know what? First, I'm going to group these faces. Then to start modifying this instance, I'm just going to hit C, and that's going to make it editable. And then I'm going to have all the same hierarchy as my initial object, which is great. So make the cheeks slightly different position. Rotate this guy a little bit. Let's also, I'm looking down and kind of cross-eyed. That's circle editable also by pressing C. Now we can start making some different expressions on these guys. There we go. There's a start. Right? Already a lot more personality. Maybe this guy will leave with this wacky mouth. I do kind of like this mouth. I'm going to make him editable. Grab that mouth, make it bigger. Drop these cheeks down. I'm going to take the eye to a different position. Actually make it a little bit bigger. This guy's going to have bigger eyes. He's going to be kind of looking upwards. Whoa. All right. Take that guy, make him editable. The nice thing that you can do is inside of symmetry objects and many other types of objects, if I just click it once, it'll select the whole symmetry, but if I double click it, it'll select objects within that hierarchy, which can be really useful. So I'm gonna make this guy's eyes a little smaller and a little closer together. I'm gonna make the cheeks small, whoops. Cheeks smaller as well. Sort of rotate him a little bit. What kind of mouth should this guy have? What do you think? Big smile. We've got kind of wide smile. We've got big surprised face. Let's do like big cheesy grin. Big old cheesy grin. Big cheesy grin. Right. Hey Techno, I've been doing 3D for a while. I've been using Cinema 4D for probably 10 years or so. It's been a while. Maybe longer at this point, maybe 11 or 12 years. I'm trying to remember exactly when. Yeah, probably around 2010. I'm self-taught with cinema. I went to school for illustration and graphic design, so I knew a lot about, you know, in my formal training, I did learn a lot about, you know, Creative Suite, stuff like that. But with 3D stuff, I'm all self-taught. I'm kind of glad. What's up, White Venom? Happy Tuesday to you too. I'm kind of glad I did things that way in a certain respect, because I think a lot of times when you learn 3D art, you're learning a lot technically about how the program works, but you're not necessarily learning the fundamentals of, you know, what makes any particular type of visual really strong. You know, whether it's a watercolor painting, a crayon drawing, a pencil sketch, there's certain things that make artwork really appealing. And learning those sort of fundamental visuals, or the visual fundamentals, I should say, is I would say more important than This guy's got kind of a funny expression. I like him. It's more important in a lot of ways than the technical aspects. So, you know, learn Cinema 4D. That's great. It's a great tool. There's a lot of awesome functionality in there. But you also have to train your eye. You have to figure out and learn about what makes a quality image. What's the type of work you want to make. And sometimes it's not about, you know, which button you need to press. A lot of times it's about, you know, really like the fundamentals of what makes a good image. Now, you see I modified this face, and this guy came along with it, which is okay for now, but I did not expand that instance, so it looks a bit different. This guy's got kind of a dopey face, huh? I'm a fan. But that's all right. So we'll go in and we'll modify this guy a little bit. Kind of got a head start, actually, because some of those modifications that we're eventually going to do are already built in. So, and modifying the position of the eyes a little bit. Cheeks a little different. Let's get into that mouth. What kind of mouth should this little guy have? So we've got medium smile, we've got surprise face, we've got big grin, we've got dopey flat face. Rotate these eyes up. He's looking up at this buddy up here. He's real happy. I don't know. Should you be sad? I don't know if I want anyone to be sad. Enough to be sad about in the world. Maybe I have like a small mouth, a little tiny smile mouth. Yeah, maybe I'll make this mouth real tiny, really in between the eyes. All right, so let's do a quick test rendering. The lighting is not super high quality at the moment, but you can sort of see what we're getting out of the image. Just keep pushing it. I think I want to try adding another light, save, before we get a crash again. This light is going to be sort of a secondary light. I'm gonna move that dude over here, rotate him around. Now these PSR lights only point in one direction, which is a bit different from the way normal Cinema 4D lights operate. This guy, you can see the reflection that he's adding. Push it further back. It's kind of like a rear edge light sort of guy. Taller. I like to have my lights below my camera in my scene. This guy, instead of being yellow, is going to be in the bluish range, and I'm going to drop his intensity down a fair bit, and I'm going to turn the shadow off. So see, we'll start getting a little bit of a fill on this side. See how we're getting a little bit more lighting on the edge. So traveling a little bit further, that's good. And turn the intensity up a little bit. Cool. Add a little bit of color to the ambient occlusion, which is a fun thing to do. Cool. And physical. Let's see. Sampling quality, I'm going to turn this up to medium. You'll see that the rendering will be less grainy. The lighting quality will be a little better. Yeah, already that's looking better. I'm going to go ahead and make the yellow light a little more yellow and the blue light a bit more blue. Cactus dude. Now the rendering, of course, is slower, like this. Now this ground object, I want to turn the reflection down even more. I'm going to turn the roughness up too. What I'm also going to do is add just a little bit of noise to the diffusion channel. Turn that noise way down. Scale. And turn it down in strength as well. Just to give us a little bit of variation, a little bit of interest to the ground here. This guy's looking a little bit blown out. I think what I want to do is bring this to a less severe angle. Rotate them. And go a little bit higher. You might want to add like sort of a globe light eventually. If I pull them a little further away, it's actually going to be better. But I think the fall off is sort of built into these physically based lights. It's going to give us a more even overall light. Ooh, maybe too far. Too far. So I think I overdid that move. So I'm going to bring it back in a little and angle it a little bit. Find that sweet spot. Fun. Now I'm afraid this dude's eyes are too small. Make them larger. And I think the reflection is stronger on both of these. And turn down the roughness. See what happens when I go above 100% in the reflection strength. That might be a little strange. See how that goes. So what I'm also going to do a little bit later is add some subsurface scattering to the green layers. Green materials, rather. Yeah. I think all of these guys need larger eyes. They're sort of getting lost. Whoops. And I think we can go a little darker, this green color. Yeah, that's better. Another thing that might be nice, actually, let's try this. Add a little bit of a gradient to this base material. I'm going to do that in my color channel. It's going to be subtle. I'm going to go from, kind of a darker green to a lighter, more saturated green. This is overkill. I'm going to wind up turning this down. This channel. I want it to be strong enough that I can really see it at first. Let's multiply it. Oh, not seeing much of it there. That could be, need to do, add it to each of these cones individually. Now let's try this. It's kind of look neat and black, actually. I'm surprised. So let's turn this to flat. And that's why we're not really seeing it. Did wrong? No. let's just test that. Let's see what we get. You can see a very subtle gradient. And that's kind of all I want, so it's good. I think you can see the end of the gradient there. Something's happening at least. Let's figure it out. We want to make it at least the height of that guy. All right. I'm just going to copy these along. Let's try that out. Certainly on this larger one, you can see the fade from lighter to darker. What I'm going to try to do is just turn that up a little bit. A little bit more pronounced. Multiply it. All right, now I want to add some spines, and I want to use the hair object to do that. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to grab all of these cones. I'm going to group them. Oops, missed one. Let's see. First, I'm going to copy them. Then I'm going to group them. I'm going to throw them inside of object measure. Oh, sorry, an object measure, a volume builder. And wherever they hide it, a volume mesher. So builder and a mesher, and I'm going to hide everything except for this. So the reason I'm doing that is because what I want is a uniform application of vertices across the whole model so that I can use a more uniform position to place the hair. Making voxel size pretty large, and it's not going to be very dense hair. I'm only going to have a little bit of it, so I don't need a ton of geometry here. So still seeing that in between. I could go ahead and modify that, but what I'm going to do is add a smooth layer. That's a little too smooth, so let's turn the strength on that down. And that brings everything in a little bit. Right? Go inside. Some of these guys are sort of disappearing, so I'm going to make them a little larger. Oops. Larger. Fine. A little larger. All right. Now I think I've got something that's going to be really useful for adding spines to. Actually, before I do that, I want to make sure that I don't have weird intersections here. Maybe I do want those. Kind of thinking out loud here. do some of that. Let's go back to where we were. All right. Let's use this, just use this as a start. We can actually just hide this later too. All right, so selected, simulate hair objects, add hair. Boom. All right, so spiny cactus. Way more hairs than I need. Don't think I want them that long either. Just say 500. Huh. Let's do a quick test. What do we got? Oh, that's just the guides. So under roots, I'm going to go as guides, so they should. I wonder if that's just a bad preview, or if that's actually the only place where those hairs are going to be. Say polygon center. Let's turn the 5,000 down to 1,000. Don't need quite so many segments, just because they're going to be very straight. Pretty good, actually. Now, we're not really able to see the hairs so well. What I'm going to do is add a background object. I'm going to go super basic. Just use a big cube as our background. Only one. It's intersecting that light, so I want to get it far enough back where that's not an issue. A bit. Nice light blue sky color. Right. This should allow us to see the spines a little better. Now we're getting a lot of influence by the yellow lighting in our front, our main light here. What I'm going to do is make this a luminant texture. Just for that. I just turn the color channel off. That gets us. right, now we're getting some better color here. I don't like the way being applied at all. I know one thing we can do, modify the color here. And the thickness, they're a little bit too pointy. 8. Turn the specular way down. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to try just having hair applied to typical geometry here. See, does that do anything for us? It's a group. So, try something else. Because it's a null, it's because it's not actual geometry. So, our volume measure back on. Actually, I'm not going to do this yet. I'm going to make this editable. I think the hair will behave a little bit better on this actual geometry. I'm going to delete that hair object and just place it again. So simulate hair object, add hair. There it is overall. I'm going to update the old material. I'm just going to turn this 5,000 to 1,000. Oh, I might even be able to go. Let's go like 750. Turn the segments down and the length way down. Turn the volume measure off because we don't want that. That's a much more even. I must have pressed one of the wrong buttons there. Okay, this is what we want. I started messing around with as guides here, sort of mess things up. This is much closer to what we want. Only a few spines. They're spaced fairly evenly. Fairly even distribution. Now the reason I went through that whole process of the volume measure is you can see that this object has a much different density of polygons than this object. And typically the hair object looks at the density to determine how many hairs to put there. So just sort of a cheat mode would be to put it in a volume measure, which has even distribution of polygons. That allows the hair to distribute evenly. So this is looking a lot better. I'm really digging this. It's kind of fun. So I think what I want to do now is turn on global illumination. MC, and gamma up to, let's say 1.6. I'll turn these samplings just to low, just while we're getting started here. It's going to give us a more realistic light bounce. Let's try this. Too big. Some of these spots, the measure is not exactly in the right location. Hairs to come through. Scooting them over. Cool. Boom. All right. So that's looking cool. All right, now we can see some light bouncing around. I think we're going to have a much nicer result on this rendering in terms of the lighting. What I can also do, I'm going to go to this PBR lighting, base our base light, or our base material here rather. Turn on luminance. I'm going to turn that off. Now I'll turn it low. Let's make like a green color here. Turn that low. And turn on subsurface scattering under effects. That's going to let the light sort of penetrate the surface of this object. It's going to look really cool. Inside that shader, ooh, a little bit of a lag there. Calculating. Inside, so I clicked on the shader. That brings up some more options. If I want this to be greenish color. Turn down the path length. I think that refers to how deep the light will go inside the geometry. I think this guy is too small a mouth now. Now in some of these areas, the needles are going through the face of the character. And I want to modify that. While I'm looking at it, I also want to take this thickness. Let's go to 7, say 6. I want these needles to be a little bit thicker. And then what I think I'm going to do, turn that mesher back on. Actually, I'm going to make a copy of this mesher just so I have it, because I'm going to start deleting some geometry. So I'm going to just select the geometry around the face and just delete it so we don't have that overlapping going on. I do think there's ways to set up masks, but I'm no expert with that. It's still showing them. Might be a weird guide thing. Let's see what we got. What we're also previewing here is how the subsurface scattering is going to look on these cacti. Turn our blue light up again a little bit. I like the thickness of these spines. Pretty good. You know, let's try them in a lighter color though. They're pretty dominant. And a lot of, in this, we haven't been referring to this reference imagery that much, but a lot of these kind of light colored spines. So that'll look kind of nice actually. Yep, and now, even though the guides don't look quite right here, we're not getting those needles poking through the faces. So that worked as I thought it might. Good. And I actually think we can come down in the thickness just a little bit. Let's call it 0.8, 1.4. Go a little brighter on the color of this cactus as well. So nice. All right. I also really like how these guys look, so I'm going to add some more of them. Whoops. All right. I do think I want a little bit of a fill light as well. The shadows here are just a little bit too dark. I'm just going to add sky. And luminant texture. It's a sort of sky color in there. And I'm going to turn it down too, because I don't want it to totally blow everything out. I think it might. These areas are just a little too dark for my taste. And let's throw another rendering out there. I'm going to test a handful of things in this rendering. Not only new lighting, but a slightly new color. We've got a whole bunch of new rocks down here, and we've got a new color for the hair, although not looking as white as I thought it might. Interesting. Why is that? You can see the lighting here, the fill looks a lot nicer. Happy with that. I like the new color of this cacti. That's working out nicely. Nice. Getting there, you guys. A tiny little sample here to see if those Hairs are still a dark color. Huh. That is interesting. It might be this backlit color. Let's turn that to white as well. You know what else? This illumination channel will make a big difference. So, perceive UI, we want the diffuse. Okay, let's turn self shadow down. Well, back shadow. Come on, baby. Let's see how a flower looks. Simple little kind of bulbous red flower on top of these guys. What's up, Tropes? Thanks for tuning in. How you doing? Cacti, that's what's good. Whole little group of cacti pals. Those hairs do not want to turn white. This is R20, so it's not the newest version. It's one of the newer versions. What you can do is in options, you can turn on enhanced OpenGL here in your viewport, and you can turn on shadows. By default, I think that's typically turned off. And I also have, let's see, in edit preferences, I think. Let's see, under OpenGL, you can turn on some options here. Now you got to be careful with these depending on the strength of your computer. That can make things run really slow if you're not careful. Huh. really strange here with this. Not want to go pure white. Once we turn diffuse way up. No, don't want that. All right, one more test. And if that doesn't work, I'm just going to go back down to dark spines. It is annoying. Oh, annoying. All right. Back to our typical spines we go. Let's use a few landscapes to kind of break up that back edge a little bit. Now, if you watch this show somewhat frequently, you'll know that I love me some landscapes. Right. Looking pretty cool. I'm gonna turn the GI up to 0.8. Get a little bit more lighting bouncing around in the scene. Right. Yeah, there's a lot of great Cinema 4D channels out there. I mean, iDesign is excellent. Sean Doyle, I think is his name. Sean Dove does some really cool stuff. Of course, there's Grayscale Gorilla. All kinds of stuff. I think, obviously, I'm the coolest one. Are you talking about Twitch channels? So I'm talking about Cinema 4D channels. I'm not sure if those other guys stream on Twitch at all. Actually, with the increased lighting and color in here. I think the dark spines are actually working kind of nicely. What's up, Grippus? Rocket Lasso is a great weekly one. Okay. That name sounds really familiar, actually. As well as this one. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Now, so I'm going to turn the luminance up. Flower guys. I'm going to make it a lot darker. I'm going to turn the path length way up. Just a little bit more of an internal bounce there. Zoom in just a touch. Just a touch. Maybe we should get really crazy. Go to this camera. And turn on some depth of field. Wait, we're in the physical space, so I think you actually have to do that here. Detail. Oh no, depth of field, rear blur. Pretty good. Now while we're testing this, I'm going to turn GI and AO off for just a minute. It's going to look different, but I just want to test this depth of field a little bit. I want to run a little quicker. It'll actually be interesting to compare the two. Oh, I see. Is he no longer with Grayscale Gorilla? Technical problem solving. Okay, cool. And it's, you know, it's good to know that there's a variety of you know, types of Cinema 4D streams. And it's good to know that I occupy sort of a certain or a different niche. This is good because I typically don't really get super deep into the technical stuff. And quite frankly, I'm not the most technical Cinema 4D user. I tend to make sort of simple scenes, and I tend to focus on, you know, fun characters and interesting color combinations and trying to make nice compositions. I also focus on, you know, really the you know, the difficulties, the honesty of actually creating something from the ground up on a weekly basis. So I don't go into these super rehearsed. I get the sense that, I mean, I haven't seen Rocket Lasso's stuff, but I know the Grayscale Gorilla stuff is usually pretty thoroughly rehearsed, and, you know, they have a really clear idea of what they're going to do going in, and probably don't fumble around and guess and change their minds so frequently during the stream. So really, I view this channel and the show, The Practice, not as a strict tutorial, although it has some tutorial-like qualities. I think you can definitely learn some stuff here. But I tend to try to really show the creative process, warts and all. Really, you know, have an honest, unrehearsed look into the creative process. So there you have it. Now the quality of light is definitely not as nice with GI and AO turned off. It's not terrible either, actually, because we got the physical renderer on. We got so much lighting in the scene. Now, to be honest, I don't know if I want those little red things in there. Little flowers, so to speak. Not particularly beautiful. Let's try this. Let's turn these spheres off. I sort of changed my mind. And I'm gonna make the faces larger. In my sketch, the faces were kind of tiny. I thought that would be the way to go. They still are pretty small. And we need to be just a little bit larger. Let's see what this gets us. And really, this rendering was a test for the depth of field. Let's see what that gets. I'm not seeing any depth of field at all. Interesting. Camera. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Good content, or good like perspective, good context, Grippus. I haven't ever seen them do their thing. And do they do YouTube or just Twitch? It's a great way to encourage audience participation as well. I like that idea. That's fun. I'm going to try the progressive renderer here. Kind of an interesting concept. It'll just keep rendering for as long as I want it to. No, that's cool. No hate at all. I'm not mad. talking about other channels. It's good to learn a bit about those. You know, it's funny, for someone who's been streaming for as long as I have, I don't spend much time looking at other streams. Like, that could be to my detriment. There are a lot of folks out there streaming. I frankly don't have the time. When I stream, it's once a week. I upload my stuff and I do my thing, and then it's on to client work or trying to drum up some client work, and you know, a variety of things like that. I don't honestly spend a lot of time looking at streams, so it's good to hear your guys' perspective on that. I like the larger faces. I wonder if it does need a little bit of color, though. I think a way we can do that is add some variation of color in the rocks. Switch it up a little bit there. Right. What's cool is turning on the progressive renderer allows us to just kind of work in the background. It's on pass 21. And it'll just keep going. No depth of field yet, though. I think the new size of the faces is working better. Maybe, you know what? Maybe we bring in some additional color on the lips in red. Let's try this out. Wanted some additional color in there, but I wasn't loving those flowers. And to be honest, I don't feel like modeling a flower right now. How's that? Does that sound lazy? I do want to bring the saturation down a bit on these. Try that. Yeah, I like it. I also like the variation of color in these rocks does a lot for me. Feeling that. Cool. I'm getting pretty close to finishing this up. Let's see what time is it. I've been going for a little while now. Usually go for about 2 hours. Yeah. Check. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save a version of this progressive guy. Just as a starting place. I'm going to let this continue to run. Then, where are we? We can do a little bit of color correction on this guy while a higher quality version working in the background. So I think off the bat, off the top, I want to make that blue a little brighter. So I'm gonna adjust the saturation up just a little bit. Hardly any at all. Then in the cyans, brighter, maybe a little darker. Somewhere in there. And so we can adjust a bit. The curves. Where are my curves? There you are. Close to the end here. Typically, it's a lot easier to make those last sort of tweaks to color inside Photoshop or After Effects or whatever you're post-processing in. You want to get it like maybe 80% there inside Cinema, and then it's nice to, you know, just that last little bit of adjustment to just do it inside of whatever your photo editing software is. I'm going to try something. Might not work. But we could do like a little bit of a bloom effect here. I'm going to just select light green color, copy and paste it. Filter, blur. Actually, you know what, just to make it a little easier to see, first I'm gonna go to levels, and I'm just gonna make it a little bit brighter, or highlight, and you can really see it there. Turn that up. I kind of like, and then blur. Kind of cut out. If we want to add a screen down a little bit, just bumps up that highlight a little in a way that I like. I want to go, just need to go darker on these blues. Calling that cyan, isn't it? That's feeling better. There's just something about the color between the cactus and the background. It just wasn't working for me. Feeling a little better, I think. Cool. Now, this is going to be a much higher quality rendering over here that now has been going for 29 passes. Good with that. 30 passes. I'm just going to save right over it. Yep. We can actually compare the two. So add that in. Bottom. See, significantly less grainy, a lot smoother, a lot better lighting quality. Cool. Well, I'm about ready to call that an episode. Good deal. Well, congratulations, all of you who made it to the end. Appreciate you tuning in. If this was useful to you at all, if you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe and like button. As I mentioned earlier, a huge majority, more than half of the people who watch these videos aren't subscribed, so it would really help a lot to bump us up in the algorithm and get a little more attention in YouTube if you would hit that subscribe button. So thank you kindly. Share it with a pal if you think they might find it useful as well. If you want to keep up with me and the work that I'm doing, please hit me up on DLGNCE on Instagram and most of the other social medias. New videos every Tuesday. Hope to see you back again next week. This is Stuart saying thanks so much. Appreciate each and every one of you, and I'll see you around. Thanks. Bye-bye.